So Twomey has revealed that the AFL Draft in 2026 will look a lot different. We still don't have the full details, but we have enough to have a kind of an understanding of how it may take shape next year. We're going to look in today's video of what them changes may be, what we do know, and how that might affect the draft based on what has gone on previous. So without any further ado, let's run that intro and get into it. G'day everyone, I am Pommy and Oz. This is the Pommy and Oz AFL YouTube channel. Welcome back, great to have you here. Do me a solid before we start, smash that like button, hit that subscribe. We're covering all sorts of mannerisms throughout the off-season, and when the season kicks off full, we're your one-stop shop for all your AFL news and analysis. So let's have a look at what we know. Obviously, the AFL draft this year was much maligned. There was a lot of NGA father-sons early doors. Players like Zeke Hewland, Harry Dean, Bob Adensall, players like Dylan Patterson, they made up the first 25 picks, and there's a host more that didn't. We did see more players not get bid on and matched, like Lachlan Carmichael and players like that. This is very intriguing for the AFL because that 10% rule that they brought in for the discount appeared at face value to make it a lot more difficult. But in the recent episode of Gettable, Twomey revealed that this year is going to be a lot more difficult for teams to match. One of them rule changes appears to be that 2 picks max can be used to match. What this means in essence is this year we saw Zeke Hewland be bid on pick 2. They used 14, 18 and 24 to match him. So they used 3 picks. You also saw the same with Carlton. Carlton matched Harry Dean with 20, 23 and 25. At pick 3. In essence, what this means now is clubs won't be able to spread the load with non-negotiable picks. This is a really intriguing change for the AFL and one that I can 100% get behind. We've seen it quite a lot that teams hoard them 20s, and we still saw it this year as well. If you go back to the past content on this channel, we have complained about this a lot, that teams somehow manage to bring in next to nothing picks, but because their value is so high, they can trade a very good pick for 3 picks that actually works out more points, which is perfect in a bid match system. This is definitely going to make it hard because there is cases like Dylan Patterson. He was 24, 29, 31 and 32 for a bid match. That's 4 picks. It's really intriguing that the first pick in the AFL draft this year that only required 2 picks was was Harry Kyle. At pick 14 when GWS bid on him. They used 26 and 27. So we're going to see a lot more of that happening. Gold Coast, interesting enough, used quite a lot of picks in this draft. Nearly 13 picks to pick up their players in the first 25 picks, which is really intriguing. Now, this leads us on to the second rule. The AFL has an idiosyncrasy where, when the draft starts, by the time you go into the draft, you only get allocated the picks for the senior list spots, which is really intriguing. Now, I don't want to pick on Gold Coast because Gold Coast, you know what, I've got a lot of respect for them, but they went into the draft with 7 list spots. They went in with 15, 18, 24, 28, 29, 36 and 52. Now, we've just told you they used 13 picks in varieties, also with change. Remember, that's how the AFL do it, to match their bids on their first 25 players. Now, it's really interesting because as the draft started, Gold Coast found a loophole. That loophole of having your picks for your players and the spots available only counts pre-draft. As soon as West Coast pick 1 goes on the clock, that rule is null and void. So they did some intriguing trades. They traded a future second for pick 35. They traded 2 thirds that they had for 48 and 49. And they also did the mammoth deal with the Western Bulldogs where they got 14, 33 and 53 for 15 and 29. They basically held more picks than they had list spots. The AFL has closed this rule, so moving into 2026 now, you will always have to have just the amount of list spots. So in essence, what would have happened here is, let's say there was a bid on Zeke Hewland at pick 2, they used 3 picks to do it, they would have been removed 15, 18 and 24 for argument's sake to keep the math simple, counted 1 as getting the player, they would have had 29, 36 and 52 available. They would have had their change come back. That's 1 pick. So there they would have been allocated a pick at the end of the draft, which is what we presume the AFL do. That's still a current rule at the minute. But that's going to be really intriguing because obviously that didn't happen for Gold Coast this time. They had traded players out. They had effectively six more picks pre that Zeke Hewland match than they did list spots. So this is going to be really intriguing. This makes it incredibly hard. And at the end of the show, we'll show you. It's not just Gold Coast that did this, though. Cowton did the same thing. They traded away pick 9 and a pick 11 for more assets to match bids on Dean. It's the same with other clubs as well. Loads of clubs do this. Brisbane did the same. Brisbane have done this historically for a millennia. Sydney have also been partaking this. What this really does here is keep the essence of the draft in what it is. Everyone is going to have the picks they need for their list spots. It's going to create higher value, but it's also going to make a higher fair trade in the avenue. We're no longer going to see teams do like the 3-for-2 deals and things like that. I find this a really fascinating change, and we have had an unprecedented amount of NGA father-sons not be matched and not be taken in the national draft, considering what there was per capita. This makes it really intriguing. So how will this look at the draft? That is a really good question. So let's get into that. So what you've got in front of you is our new AFL mock draft board. This will be available to you on the website. It's going to be constantly evolution and changing. But what we've got is we've taken the pick order from using the bookies model. So the bookies have done their pre-season predictions. We've just replicated the ladder finishes like that. This is going to be constantly rolling and changing. There's loads of cool functions on this one. I will show you just briefly here. We'll just have a little bit of a play. You've got your list analysis as soon as you come up. You can hide that now until it's there. You can also configure the list spots as well pre-draft. So what I would implore you to do is head on over to the website, play with our list management tool that will give you and spit out the calculation of how many list spots. To keep it simple, we'll just keep it with 5 picks per team, and we can start drafting. Now, this is where it comes interesting. There's a few caveats to this. A couple of rules that people aren't familiar with. We do expect, and Twomey did specify, that the deficit rule will still apply. Now, the deficit rule is one of the more complex rules, but most people think the deficit rule stands as at a flat 1167. That is the value of pick 18, pick 36, and pick 54 as if you win the flag. That is actually correlated to the future picks you own. So if you own 3 first-rounders next year, you're capped at 1167. However, if you own just 3 thirds, right, that's just for pick 54 times 14. That's times 3, 14 threes. So your cap then would only be 42. It's a really intriguing system, but it gives you some information. The other bit that Twomey gave us, which you'll see here, we'll just bid on Archie Hill. You'll see here there's no discount. So what we're speculating here at this minute is the way he worded it was very careful, but he did say that they are going to be next year, there'll be no discount, presumably in the first round. There may be a smaller discount. The system here has just done 0 discount in the first round, 0 discount in the second round, and we predict that they'll still want father-son NGAs to go later. So we've kept that 54 post rule. That is just next pick, 37 onwards. So that is going to be really intriguing, I find, how the AFL manufacture that and get that going. But this is basically the ladder, and you'll see there's a few little players here. We've got about 70 players on here. You can sort this. We've just added, I'm just waiting for the coding to be completed, but we've added ability for you to actually just lock this in position as well. But you can look at the academy-tied players, and there's quite a few this year. Blake Justice, Aidan McCartney looks like quite a sort as well. Archie Daffy's going to be one of them guys that slides to the rookie round. Cody Walker, we know about him. Cooper Hodge could also choose Hawthorn or Brisbane. We've got him going Hawthorn. We think he'll choose his dad, but that will be fluid. Then we've also got players like players to really look out for. I want you to look out for Levi West at Western Bulldogs. He looks quite a prospect. Lucas Robinson looks a really solid midfielder. He's tied to Fremantle. Quite a few players there. Sam Murray as well. They're in a predicament. There's a load of players on here, though, and these will be added. At the minute, as you can see here, we're going to be adding this to the player traits code as we come on. But this will be really exciting. So have a little play with this. So let's just have a little bit of a play, right? Let's have a little bit of a play. So we'll just throw any old dog. So I'm going to go with my boy here. My boy, it's all in alphabetical order. We're going to go down to Van Ruin. I loved him in the draft. He was an underager. He was the WA Ruckman. A very good Benji. So we're going to say he's taken at pick 1, right? We're going to say he's taken at pick 1 because I don't think you're going to see any changes in that avenue in the terms of, I still think pick 1 will be a free player and everyone's going to do it. But we're going to use Cody Walker as an example now. Let's have a look here. So Carlton have got the deficit, they can do it. So you can see here that if the bid is on pick 2, as we have predicted, we've predicted that we're using the bookie model that Carlton will have 7 and 14, 22, 33, and 54. Really good points here that if this was the case here, Carlton could match. Let's look at Dougie Cochrane as well. Another guy, right? It's going to be really interesting. They've got enough points, incidentally, Port, to match this. They're going to be 201 in deficit. They'll lose their first 2 picks, 6 and 24. They'll slide into deficit in the first round next year by 201 points. This is a really intriguing one for them. You can see how it's a lot harder because you're only using 2 picks. Because previous Carlton, if you look and you go to their picks here, they've got 1,543, 1,024, 684. They could match a bid quite easily under the old model, even at pick 1 with all them picks. You can see now it's going to be a lot more complex for them. So you can see here how this would shape the draft because at this stage now, Cochrane going at pick 2 to Richmond, absolutely catastrophic for Carlton and Port Adelaide. But they can still do it, so it's still manageable, as you can see. Another intriguing rule as well is just when you go and see how this works as a trade factor, if we go into the trades, you can no longer do stuff like this. You can't just take pick 13 and execute it. Look, see? Trade blocked because of the new AFL rules. So this is going to be really intriguing that you're going to see teams have to do stupid stuff like this. So you're going to have to see teams use a future and a late pick this year. It's not much of a change, but it is really intriguing. So let's just play this from the mindset here, right? That what's going to happen in this system is Carlton are going to have a bid. They're going to do the right thing, Eagles, and they're going to do it. Now, Carlton would go into 433 points in deficit in round 1. Now, is that catastrophic? Not really, but this is quite intriguing what Carlton could do here. So let's just use Carlton as an example. We'll go with Carlton, and let's have a look at a team that traditionally doesn't pick in the first round. GWS have got a couple. You might see Carlton go, right, okay, let's give you the Sydney pick, and let's give you pick 30, let's give you pick 54, right? Let's give you pick 54, right? And we execute that trade, right? And this is really intriguing here because you see Carlton, at this stage here, it doesn't affect it, right? It's really intriguing because your first 2 picks. So for Carlton to negate this, right, we're going to have to see teams really get creative. Really get creative. So this could be a case here where Carlton look at a team that maybe won't bid in here. So let's just use North Melbourne as an example. So if you didn't want to go into deficit, look at how hard this is. Carlton might go, tell you what, we'll give you 14 for pick 4 and a future first. And we'll throw in a future third, right? Suddenly teams are going to have to overpay, right? So this is where it gets intriguing because now when Cody Walker is bid on, as you can see, Carlton have that overpay. And you can see it's 500. So Carlton could really play around here. St Kilda could come to the party. The Doggies, Collingwood, traditionally, they're going to have to use that pick, though you would have thought, because they want to get under the new rules. It's a really intriguing model of how it's going to work. And you can see here it gets even more complicated for teams like Port Adelaide in this avenue. So let's just reset that, go back to here. If Port Adelaide was bid on, and I can see a world where Dougie Cochrane, just because he wasn't NGA, they're going to have to find 720. So this is, again, another situation where suddenly now trading is even more exciting because this is where you've got to really go bold. So you wouldn't look at maybe North Melbourne here. Maybe this is where Port look at a team like, say, St Kilda. Obviously, they've got Zach Butters out, but let's just say Zach Butters stays. This is where they're really looking. So this might be where Port Adelaide go, Okay, let's look at St Kilda. Let's really help them out. Let's give them 24 and 25 because that's not going to be part of the match. And a round 2 pick, and we'll give them 28 and we'll take 85 off them, right? Suddenly you see now, this is where it gets really intriguing because you see there's a bit of meat into this. So now you see they've only got a 14-point deficit, 102 overpay. This is really exciting, I think, when you look at how your teams can manufacture this. They're going to have to do a lot of work, and it's going to be really intriguing how it goes. So hopefully you guys and girls got a lot out of that. As you can see, it's still manageable, but now it's opened the doors to trading. And I predict now that in 2026, we're going to see a lot of trades. Knowing the fact that you only get the list spots in the draft and it's got to stay that way, that creates a new problem that teams are going to have to do this in trades. So I'm predicting in 2026, we're going to see more player trades. We're going to see teams less likely probably to use free agency and try and force the trade. And we're also going to see teams probably overpay for free agents to get them picks in. It's going to be a fascinating conundrum. Watch this space next year because teams like Essendon, Fremantle, Carlton, Port Adelaide, Sydney and Gold Coast have players that are very, very strong academy links. So it's going to be really intriguing moving forward. I really like this rule. I know it stiffs my club Carlton, but I do like it. And we're going to be adapting that simulator to see how it works as the rules come in. So let me know what you think. Hopefully you found this video useful. What changes would you make? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Until next time, Pom out.
Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it